You have your Bible this morning? Hold them up high. Bible believing, Bible preaching church. And go ahead and open up your Bibles to Psalms 23. Psalms 23. We are continuing with our series from Psalms 23 entitled Stress Busters. And week before we looked at the stress of worry. This morning I want to look at the stress of dark valleys. The stress of dark valleys. Psalms 23. There is an old Arab proverb that says, all sunshine and no rain makes a desert. All sunshine and no rain makes a desert. That's why people in Alabama and Georgia right now are praying for rain. Because all sunshine and no rain makes a desert. And what that means is simply this: if you never have any downtime, if you never have any gloomy times, any difficult times, you'll be dried up. You have no depth to yourself, no maturity. Because it takes good times and bad times to make a mature person. Now, I know we don't want to hear that. We like to think all we need are good times. But it takes good times as well as bad times to make a mature person. See, life is a mixture of pain and pleasure. Of victory and defeat. Of success and failure. Of mountaintops and valleys. And so we're going to talk about this morning, how do you deal with the dark valleys of life. And I want to begin by saying this, that even in our darkest valleys, God is there. Here's the way David put it in Psalms 23 verse 4. He said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. In Israel, there's a real valley of the shadow of death. It's a steep, deep, narrow canyon. The sun only hits the bottom of it when it's directly overhead at high noon. The rest of the time, the bottom of that canyon is completely dark. And David probably led his sheep through the valley of the shadow of death as he was growing up. He says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. As you look in the Bible, the term valley refers to all kinds of rough times in life. Joshua talks about the valley of calamity. Psalm 84 talks about the valley of weeping. Hosea talks about the valley of trouble. And this verse in Hebrew actually means the valley of deep darkness. How do I handle the deep, dark valleys of life? Well, I want to begin by giving you 5 facts about valleys that you need to remember whenever you go through a tough time. And then we're going to look at a few ways of how to overcome and how to get through it. But let me give you 5 facts about valleys. Let me encourage you to write these down on the back of your bulletin. Number 1, remember this: valleys are inevitable. Valleys are inevitable. In other words, they are going to happen to you, so you might as well count on them. See, right now you have just come out of a valley. Or you are in a valley. Or you're headed to a valley. But they are a part of life. They happen throughout life, one after another. After every mountaintop, you can count on there being a valley. And I like Jesus because Jesus was very realistic about that. He said in John 16 verse 33, he says, in the world you will have trouble. Now, the Lord has made a whole lot of promises. That's one promise we don't want to claim, but it's a promise nonetheless. He says, in this world, you are going to have trouble. It's going to happen. You're going to have difficulty and disappointments and discouragement in life. There will be times of suffering and sorrow and sickness. There will be frustrations and failures and so on. They're going to happen. They're a normal part of life. So don't be surprised by it. One of the reasons many times we're defeated by it, because we think, man, why this shouldn't happen to me. They are going to happen. They are inevitable. Here's the second thing you need to know about valleys. They're unpredictable. Man, valleys are unpredictable. They usually come at the worst time. Yeah. Don't they? Right. Have you ever had a flat tire at a good time?
This morning.
Your car ever broke down at a good time? No, it always happens at the worst time. It would be great if we could schedule difficulties in life. Amen. If I could schedule my own difficulties, I think I put it on the calendar for 2050. Way down the road. But it doesn't happen like that. Valleys come suddenly. They're unpredictable. Have you noticed how easily a good day can become a bad day? Yeah. A phone call out the blue and your world's turned upside down. Yes, you get a text message or a routine doctor's visit and your whole life is out of whack. Yes. Valleys happen that way. Here's how Jeremiah described it in Jeremiah 4 verse 20. He said, disaster follows disaster. In an instant, my tents are destroyed. My shelter falls in a moment. Valleys are unpredictable. Let me give you a third thing you need to know about valleys. Valleys are impartial. They are impartial. No one is immune to them. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, rich or poor, Republican or Democrat, Trump or Hillary. It doesn't matter. They are impartial. They happen to everybody. When you go through problems and trials and difficulties, it doesn't mean necessarily that you are a bad person. It means you are a person. It doesn't mean you are an evil human being. It means you are a human being. Welcome to the human race. Because everybody goes through them. The Bible is very clear that sometimes good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. That's just the way it is in life. Valleys are impartial. They don't care how good or bad you are. Amen. Jesus said it this way in Matthew 45. He said, it rains on the just and the unjust too. And so when we go through a difficult time of valley, the first reaction is always, why me? Why me, Lord? Yet really you should be asking, why not me? I mean, think about it. Do you think you should be exempt from all the problems everybody else in the whole world goes through? Everybody in the whole world goes through it, and yet somehow I think I should be exempt. Do you think you should be the only one in the universe that never experiences a tragedy? That never experiences a loss? That never loses a loved one? Do you think you're the only one who shouldn't go through that? No, instead of saying, why me, just realize it's going to happen because you are a human being. See, folks, this is not heaven. This is not heaven. Some folks describe it as hell. It's a hell on earth. I wouldn't call it that either. By the way, how do you get holy water? You boil the hell out of it. But anyway, that's another lesson. Valleys are impartial, folks. But here's the third thing you know about valleys. They are temporary. They're temporary. They have an end to them. They don't last. They're not a permanent location. David said it this way. He says, even though I walk through, say it now, through the valley. The valley is not something you stay in. It's something you go through. A circumstance, a situation that has a season to it. So when you're in the valley, you often think it's a dead end, but it's not. It's like a tunnel. There's a beginning and an end. You go through the tunnel and eventually you're out back into the light. They don't come into your life to stay. I like what the Bible says, and it came to pass. They come to pass. But even if they don't, listen to this verse. 1 Peter 1:6. Peter says, there is a wonderful joy ahead, even though the going is rough for a while down here. Peter admits that sometimes you're going to go through tough times. It's going to be rough. Life is tough, but it's only for a while. He says there is a wonderful joy ahead. Now right here, Peter's talking about heaven. And you know there are no problems in heaven, folks. There are no valleys in heaven. There are no dark days in heaven. And while you may be harassed down here, in heaven there won't be any problems. If you know Jesus Christ, that's where you're going, and there won't be any problem. So here's the point, though. Even if you live 80 or 90 years, and you have whatever problem you're going through right now for 80 or 90 years, it's temporary compared to eternity. You understand what I'm saying? So somebody may say, well, I've been struggling with something all of my life. It's short compared to how long you're going to spend in eternity without any problems, any harassment, any headaches whatsoever. Paul said it this way. He says, our troubles are short-lived, and there is an eternal glory which outweighs them all. You know what Paul says about our problems? They don't weigh much, and they won't last long. You and I just got to get the right perspective. There is a benefit from them. But then let me give you number 5 about our valleys. Valleys are purposeful. Here's the one we may need the most. Valleys are purposeful. In other words, God has a reason for taking you through the dark valley. Whether it's doubt or depression or despair or discouragement or defeat, He's got a reason behind it. So let me give you one of the reasons. I don't have all the reasons. Let me give you one of the reasons. 1 Peter 1. He says, at the present you may be temporarily harassed by all kinds of trials. Now watch this. He says, this is no accident. It happens to prove your faith. Amen. In other words, if you want to know whether or not your faith is real, go through something. Yeah. You don't know a person's faith is real on Sunday morning necessarily. Amen. You don't know a person's faith is real when they win the lottery. You know, how you praising, jumping up and down. You can tell a person's faith is real when they go through some tough times. When a spouse walks out on them, they still praise God. Yeah. They lose a loved one and it hurts like the dickens, but they still praise God. They don't get the promotion at work, but they still praise God. Yeah, they've been discriminated against, but they still praise God. When they go through something, they don't stop doing what they've always done. They keep on praising God. That's when you know your faith is real, man. And so God allows you to go through the valleys to prove your faith is real. And so, folks, the valleys are not just a freak of nature. God wants to build faith in your life. And He does it in the valleys, not on the mountaintops. He builds faith in the valley. When you come face to face with the valley and you get on your knees, then your faith is strengthened. When you don't feel like serving God and trusting God, you keep on doing it anyway. Faith is strengthened. Oh man, but it happens in the valley. So pain can be productive if you respond the right way. Well, here's the question. Now that you've given me these facts about valleys, what do I do when I go through dark valleys? So let me give you these 3 things real quickly. Here's what David said. David said, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So let me give you the first thing you need to do when you're going through a dark valley. Number 1, refuse to be discouraged. Just refuse. David said, I will fear no evil. That's what David said as a believer who puts his faith in God. He says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Notice he says, I walk. I don't run. He didn't say I panic in the valley or I run the other way from the valley. He says, I walk. To walk means to calmly and deliberately make steps through the valley. David says, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to cave in. I'm not going to be discouraged. I will calmly walk through the valley. Refuse to be discouraged no matter what you're going through right now. Refuse it. You can't go around the valley. You can't go under the valley. You can't go over the valley. You can only go through the valley. And you got to just keep on walking. Keep on walking through the valley. Here he says, he says, I will fear no evil. Will implies a choice. All right. It implies an act of volition, a decision. He says, I will not be afraid. So here's what I learned from this verse this morning. That if I am discouraged, it's because I'm choosing to be discouraged. Amen. That alone helped me. If I'm discouraged, it's because I'm choosing to be discouraged. I don't have to know what your particular problem is, but if you're down in the dumps and discouraged, you're choosing to be discouraged because discouragement is always a choice. Always a choice. You don't have to choose to be discouraged. But you're choosing to think discouraging thoughts. Anybody battle with that? Amen. Choosing to think discouraging thoughts. You're choosing to look at all of the negatives. You're choosing not to look at Christ and the positive things. You're looking at all of the negative. That's a choice. As a matter of fact, here's what you ought to do. In the morning, a preacher told me one time, he says, Fred, you have two lists. Everybody has two lists. A list of reasons why you should be happy and thankful, and a list of reasons why you should be unhappy and unthankful. He says, here's what you do. He says, when you wake up in the morning, what you do is you decide which list you're going to focus on. Because everybody's got the two lists. I can give you 1,000 reasons right now why I should be discouraged. Everybody has a list. So take a piece of paper, put a line right down the middle. On the left side, put reasons to be discouraged. On the other side, reasons to be happy or positive. He says, what you do in the morning is you decide which list you're going to focus on. So if somebody asks you, how you doing? You go through your list. Which side of the list am I going to focus on? How you doing? I'm blessed and highly favored. Because that's on my list. I'm choosing. That's the happy list. I could go, man, my bills are piling up. You see the difference? And I'm discouraged. But I get to choose. It is a choice, folks, a deliberate act. How do I choose to not be discouraged? By focusing on God's power rather than on your problem. Yes. That's how you do it, folks. See, you can take two people and put them in identical situations. Put them in the same situation, a chaos, a tragedy, a crisis. One of them will be completely blown away by it, and the other grows by it. Amen. Why is that? One of them is strengthened through it, the other is fallen, is broken up. The difference is what you're focusing on. So here's what I believe you need to focus on. You need to focus not on your circumstances, but on Christ. Amen. You need to focus not on your situation, but on the Savior. Amen. You need to focus not on your problems, but on His power. And refuse to be discouraged. Amen. I love this verse from Paul in Colossians 1. He says, God will strengthen you with His own great power so that you will not give up when troubles come, but you will be patient. Amen. Refuse to be discouraged. Yeah. Then number 2, will you remember that God is with me? When you're going through a dark valley, please remember. Remind yourself, oh, God is with me. David said, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. See, God not only promises His power when I go through the valley, He promises His presence. And what that says is, I will never go through anything by myself. Amen. I never go through a dark valley. I never go through a difficult situation. I never go through a problem alone. God has said, I will be with you. I love the way He says it in Isaiah 43:2. He says, when you go through deep waters and great trouble, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fires of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. God says you are not going to drown. You're not going to burn up. You're not going to die. I will be with you. I'm with you every step in the valley. Listen, folks, there's nothing to fear when Jesus is near. He's with you. So what I need to learn to do is practice the presence of God. Because intellectually, I know He's with me all the time. But emotionally, sometimes I forget. And so I just need to practice His presence. Listen, God is not sitting up there in heaven looking down on you saying, boy, I sure hope you make it. They have some financial problems. Man, I hope they get through it. I don't know how. But somehow I hope they get through it. No, the Bible says God is with you. With you. Walking with you hand in hand. It's something interesting that happens in Psalms 23 verse 4. If you look at that verse, Psalms 23:4, there's a strategic change in the language. Now watch this. In the first part of the psalm, all of the pronouns are in the third person. The Lord is my shepherd. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still water. He restores my soul. All of them, but when He gets to the valley, It becomes first person. He changes from the third person to the first. He says, you God, are with me. Your rod and your staff are coming. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemy. You are in other words, when things are going okay, he's talking about God. But when you go through the valley, you want to talk to God. In other words, folks, it becomes not just religion, but a relationship. As any real believer, and they would tell you they've never been more closer to God than when they were in a dark valley.
Amen. Amen.
That's when God becomes real, folks. Amen. David says, now this is about a relationship. I don't want to spend time talking about God. I want to talk to God. And that's what God wants. That's where he wants us to be. He wants us to have that intimate relationship with him. And sometimes it takes the dark valley to get us there. Oh, David says, it's the valley of life that brings us face to face with God. And all of a sudden, the ultimate becomes the intimate. That's what it's all about. God becomes real. He says, I'm with you. You're not in this by yourself. And so I know you're going through that divorce or whatever, but you're not in this by yourself. You're struggling with your daughter. You're not in this by yourself. You're having financial, whatever it is, you're not in this by yourself. I, God, am with you. And then the third thing I need to do is to rely on God's protection and guidance. Rely on his protection and guidance. David reminds himself that God's rod and staff comforts him. The rod and staff are two basic tools that shepherds use to protect and guide the sheep. The rod was basically about 2 feet long. At the end of it was a heavy knot, and shepherds were skilled at hurling that thing at a would-be attacker. Any animal that would try to come and attack the sheep. That's God's way of saying, listen folks, I'm defending you. I am protecting you while you're going through the battle. David says, not like this, he says, your staff comforts me. A staff was a long stick with a crook at the end of it. And the shepherd would use the staff to guide and comfort. He'll use the staff to draw the sheep close to him. That's it, my brother. Preaching now. He'll use the staff to lift them up when they're down. He used the staff to bring them closer to himself. God is saying, when you go through the valley, you're not alone. I'm right there with you, bringing you closer to my heart. Bringing you closer to myself. He's using that rod and staff to protect and guide. David says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of the death. Let me tell you something, folks. When you go through a valley of life, the scary parts are the shadows. I remember Lily was about 1 year old, my granddaughter. And we were outside one day in the driveway, and the sun was shining bright. And she stepped out, and she saw this big old shadow, scared her to death. It was a shadow of herself. She saw it on this sidewalk. And she kept running, and the shadow was following everywhere. I said, baby, that's just a shadow. It's just a shadow. Calm down. Shadows can be very, very scary. And when you're going through that, you're saying, Lord, how am I going to make it? David says, and I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Notice, he didn't walk through the valley of death. He said through the valley of the shadow. And so one day shadows are going to fall over your life. But I need you to remember something about shadows. I learned something about shadows. What I learned about shadows is this: shadows are always bigger than reality. Shadows are always bigger than reality. In other words, fear is always greater than the actual problem. I don't know how many things I've been so afraid of when that fear was bigger than the actual problem itself. Shadows are always bigger than reality. And then remember this, shadows cannot hurt you. Amen. Shadows can't hurt you. You ever been run over by a shadow? Would you rather be hit by a Mack shadow or a Mack truck? Give me the shadow any day. Because shadows cannot hurt you. Shadows are images without substance. Yes. That's all they are. They can't hurt you. They can scare you a little bit if you let it, but they can't hurt you. They're just shadows. But then remember this, there's no shadow without a light somewhere. All right. Anytime there's a shadow, there's got to be light. When you're going through a dark valley, you think the sun has stopped shining and God is dead and I'm all alone and I can't see it all. You think you're in total darkness, but anytime there's a shadow, folks, it means there's light somewhere. Amen. And so when you start to get afraid of the shadow and the dark valleys of life, turn your back on the shadow and look directly at the light. Just turn your back on the shadow and look directly at the light. And then what happens is this, the shadow falls behind.
Yes, sir.
You got the shadow right there. You see this big old shadow. Turn your back on the shadow. Look at the light. The shadow falls behind. What did Jesus say? Jesus said, I am the light of the world.
Yes, sir.
Fix your eyes on me. Quit looking at your problems. Quit looking at the shadows. Get your eyes on the light. Because let me tell you something. If you look at the world, you're going to be distressed. If you look inside, you're going to be depressed. But if you look at Christ, you're going to be at rest. Get your eyes off the shadows. Turn your back on the shadows. And just look to the light. And then you know everything is going to be all right. Why am I stressing over this? Why am I stressing over this? See, here's one thing about being a Christian. Everybody, as I said, goes through dark valleys. Difficult times, discouraging times, problems, trials, whatever you want to call it. Believers and unbelievers go through it. But the difference between a believer and the unbeliever is this. But the believer is not the absence of the shadows, but the presence of the shepherd. We got the shepherd. And so it makes no sense to me for anybody to go through all these problems that you're going to go through because you're a human being and not have the shepherd in your life. You say, you're going to go through them anyway, so why not have Jesus in your life? Why not have that shepherd leading and guiding you on into the light? Jesus said it this way, Psalms 34:19. He says, the good man does not escape all troubles,